Alright, what's up, folks? Sunday, October 2nd, 2016. Rich Van Tassel back with you. Continuing on with our recap of Week 4. Our next game, the Seattle Seahawks went into New York and defeated the Jets 27-17. Russell Westbrook was spectacular in this game. 23 of 32, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Running the ball, Christian Michael, 18 carries, 58 yards. CJ Spiller, 2 for 12. Altogether, the team only 26 of 66 with just 2.5 yards per rush. Jimmy Graham was very good in the receiving game, 6 for 113. Doug Baldwin, 4 for 54. Tanner McAvoy had a 42-yard touchdown. Christian Michael also had 5 receptions for 32 yards and a touchdown, and CJ Spiller added a touchdown as well in the receiving game. No fumbles either way for the Seahawks. They did have 4 sacks. 3 interceptions, 2 by Richard Sherman, 1 by Earl Thomas. Nothing really of note in the kicker punt return game. Stephen Hauschka 2 for 2 in his field goals. For the New York Jets, Ryan Fitzpatrick was not as terrible as last week, but he still wasn't great either. 23 of 41, 261 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. The 3 interceptions, not the worst of interceptions, but you play with snakes long enough, you're going to get bit. He made it clear, and they were talking about it during the game. He was going to go at Richard Sherman when he had one-on-one coverage with Brandon Marshall, and Richard Sherman got 2 interceptions out of it. Matt Forte, 14 of 27, running the ball. Bilal Powell, 4 of 26. Altogether, the team 20 of 58. Seattle was doing a good job against the run. Brandon Marshall had his moments against Richard Sherman. 4 receptions, 89 yards. Quincy Enunwa, 6 for 60. Bilal Powell, 6 for 64. Ryan Fitzpatrick did fumble. It was not lost. And Sharon Peak recovered a fumble. Only 2 sacks by the Jets. Leonard Williams did get one of them. The other one came from Buster Skrine, who's a nickelback. So the defensive line was held in check by a pretty patchwork Seattle Seahawks offensive line. A 27-yard kick return for Jeremy Ross, and Nick Folk was 1 for 1 in his field goals. So Ryan Fitzpatrick will start there. His turnovers, one of them fell through the hands of a receiver. He was forced into some passing situations late. Again, as we discussed, he was going at Richard Sherman, and he got beat because of it. It wasn't nearly as egregious as last week, but still, he now has 9 interceptions in his past 2 weeks. That's not going to get the job done. As for Russell Wilson, man, he was hitting some beautiful passes in this game. He was dropping some right in there to Jimmy Graham, just throwing the ball exactly where it needed to be at time. It was really something to watch how good Russell Wilson was playing today. I couldn't have been any more impressed with his game, and this, as of right now, is the best game of the week thus far. We'll see if anything else happens, but you, of course, have the Sunday and Monday night games, but he was just spectacular in this game in Seattle. Their offense is now coming along on a hurt Russell Wilson, really just showing some sensational play today. The Detroit Lions losing to the Chicago Bears 17-14. Both teams are now 1-3. Chicago getting their first win of the season. Matthew Stafford for the Lions, 23 of 36, 213 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Theo Riddick running the ball, 11 for 31. Altogether, the team 18 of 66. Marvin Jones, the top receiver, 5 for 74. Eric Ebron, 4 for 42. Anquan Boldin, 6 for 31. No fumbles. They only had 2 sacks. Darius Slay had 1, Kerry Hyder the other. No interceptions, no fumbles either way. Andre Roberts, 3 returns for 71 yards. That's almost 24 yards per return. Not bad. Matt Brady, 2 for 2 in his field goals. The Chicago Bears, Brian Hoyer got the start again. Pretty good in this game. 28 of 36, 302 yards. No interceptions with 2 touchdowns, so no interceptions, the most important part. Jordan Howard ran the ball very well. 23 carries, 118 yards. That's 4.8 yards per rush. Altogether, the team was only 29 of 114, which is 3.9 yards per rush. So you saw that a bulk of it was Jordan Howard playing well, and the other running just wasn't that good. And Brian Hoyer, 3 carries for negative 3 yards. So those were likely kneel downs. Eddie Royal, the top receiver, 7 receptions, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. Kevin White, 6 for 55. Alshon Jeffrey only had 3 receptions, but did have 46 yards. That's over 15 yards per catch. 2 sacks for the Chicago Bears. Jacoby Glenn and DeAndre Hall both had interceptions. And Connor Barth was 1 for 2 in his field goal. So Chicago getting their first win. Again, I expect them to be game in this one. I just didn't think Brian Hoyer would have enough. He certainly may be taking the job from Jay Cutler, especially if he can keep his turnovers down. He was, only 8 incompletions, so give him credit with the way he played in this game. They certainly needed that type of game from their quarterback, and they were able to get it. The Oakland Raiders defeating the Baltimore Ravens on the road, 28-27. This may have been exactly. I think I had a 1-point game in this one. I'll have to check my game picks, but I expected a close one in this one. Hats off to the Oakland Raiders. Derek Carr, 25 of 35, 199 yards, so not great in the yards department. Did have 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. DeAndre Washington, 5 carries for 30 yards. Latavius Murray, 8 for 19. The team altogether, 19 for 62. Michael Crabtree, very good day through the air. 7 receptions, 88 yards. Amari Cooper, 5 for 48. Danico Autry recovered a fumble. DeAndre Washington lost a fumble. They had a sack from Khalil Mack getting in the act and Bruce Irvin. So they're picking up the slacks, and those were the only 2 sacks for them this game. Jalen Richards, 3 returns, 66 yards. That's a 22-yard per return average. He also had a 24-yard return average in his punt return game. Sebastian Janikowski did not kick any field goals. For the Baltimore Ravens, Joe Flacco, 32 of 52, 298 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, a lot of incompletions. Terrence West running the ball, 21 of 113, 5.4 yards per rush and a touchdown. Joe Flacco had a 1-yard touchdown rush. Altogether, the Ravens ran the ball very well, 26 of 130, 5 yards per rush, 2 touchdowns. Steve Smith Sr., the top receiver, 8 receptions, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. Kyle Juszczyk, 6 for 56. Mike Wallace, 4 for 44. Jeremy Zuta, Tavon Young recovered fumbles. Joe Flacco lost a fumble. Devin Hester recovered a fumble and his own fumble, and Terrence West fumbled. It was not lost. No sacks for the Baltimore Ravens. Hats off to the Oakland Raiders offensive line in this game. Justin Tucker, 2 for 2 in his field goal. So Oakland getting a big-time road victory against an undefeated team up to that point. Their defense certainly played well. Joe Flacco had some yards through the air, but did throw 20 incomplete passes. So you've got to give the Oakland Raiders defense credit, because they've certainly been having their troubles defending the pass early on this season, and they were able to come up big in this game and get the road win. The Carolina Panthers dropped to 1-3. They lose to the Atlanta Falcons 48-33. Cam Newton was knocked out of this game. Derek Anderson carried the bulk of the passing, 17 of 23, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Cam Newton, 14 of 25, 165 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Cam Newton was the top rusher, 5 carries for 30 yards. Cameron Otis-Payne, 6 for 12. The team 15 for 49. Carolina's going to be in a lot of trouble if they can't run the ball that well. That's what they like to do. Fozzie Whitaker, 9 for 86 in the in the receiving game. He was their top receiver. Greg Olsen, 6 for 76. Devin Funchess, 2 for 56. No fumbles. Luke Kuechly had a sack. Kawan Short had a sack. They had 3 sacks altogether. Kirk Coleman had an interception. He returned for a touchdown. Ted Ginn Jr. had 2 returns of 65 yards. That's 32.5 yards per return. Graham Gano, 1 for 1 in his field goals. For the Atlanta Falcons, Matt Ryan had himself a day. So did Julio Jones. We'll get into that. Matt Ryan, 28 of 37. 503 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Devontae Freeman, 13 carries, 57 yards, 4.4 yards per rush. He had a touchdown. The team altogether 25 carries, 90 yards, 3.6 yards per rush. Julio Jones, 12 receptions for 300 yards and a touchdown. Just an absolute monster. Today, no answers for the Carolina Panthers. Taylor Gabriel, 3 for 49. Aldrick Robinson, 2 for 48. Austin Hooper, 1 for 42. Hooper's was a touchdown. Aldrick Robinson had a touchdown. So did Julio Jones. No fumbles. Only 1 sack came from Dwight Freeney in this game. Robert Alford had 2 interceptions. He returned 1 for a touchdown that basically sealed the game. Matt Bryant, 2 for 2 in his field goals. Now, the Atlanta Falcons, they are off to a good start. They are now 2-1 in the division and 3-1 overall. Carolina, this was only their first division loss. They dropped to 1-3, so they got a lot of work to do. Let's see what they can bounce back with, but certainly they're not done because of their division play. They just got started, so they have some time to recover in that regard. All right, so we'll come back a little later on and give you part 3 of the Week 4 recap. Be sure to stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much. We'll see you in a little bit.